Oh, yes, indeed. Thank you, Mark. And we've got Lawrence Wilbert, who is the President General, Unity Schools All Students Association at USOSA. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
Well, you know, it's one of those interesting times in the history of this country. This Saturday, we'll be going to elections again for the governorship and state houses of assembly. And before then, last week, we had that of the presidential. We know the skirmishes, the nature of all of those. But even preceding these elections this weekend, we still have some of those making the rounds in some states. But as President General of Unity Schools All Students Association, the purpose for Unity Schools in those days, unity, pro-unitate, to move the country in that light. Do you feel sometimes that in context of what's going on, that purpose seems to be lost? It's not being achieved at the moment.
Well, thank you for having me this morning. The purpose for the Unity Schools, lost. I don't think it's lost. I just think the purpose needs to be reactivated. I have in Nigeria a constituent of well over 1 million Nigerians educated in the Federal Unity colleges, that's the Federal Government College, Federal Government Girls Colleges, who are and have been groomed for a time like this to be leaders that would drive the integrity and unity of Nigeria. The purpose of my being here today really is just to say, activate them, to realize the leaders that they be for a time like now. We talked about, you just mentioned the presidential election that happened less than a couple weeks ago, and the gubernatorial or state level elections coming up this Saturday. What I would want to do is encourage my constituents, the USOSANs, to go out and realize who they be their leaders, those that are vying for positions to stand tall, to be voted in for, and those that are not, to go out there, make sure that they're not disenfranchised, but vote.
What about those of them who have been in government?
Yes.
Who, at different times, even up until recently, what kind of impact have they made? Is there any way you measure that?
Oh, yes. Well, right now, we currently do not have any metrics for measuring their impact. But I can tell you one thing. Even those that are maybe adduced to have performed badly, there is one thing that you would always find in the character of a USOSA, is the fact that they will always stand for the unity and purpose of Nigeria as one. Okay? Now, moving forward, my responsibility as a new President General is to make sure I can activate that even moving forward and set metrics, stating to all the USOSANs that, hey, this is what we stand for. These are our ideals that we're groomed from childhood. Now, let's make sure that we drive that actively. You see, what is missing in Nigeria right now is the fact that we need to stand and position ourselves for purposeful leadership. That is lacking. We call ourselves leaders. But where are we driving Nigeria to as leaders? Are Nigerians aware of who we be and where the leaders are taking us? That is what I'm calling out the USOSANs for. Now, along with that, I'm calling all Nigerians to realize that, hey, we are greater and better as one Nigeria. Even the economics should tell us that.
There's a lot of divisive communication making the rounds now. We just saw an interview about one state, and there's a lot of that has also happened in Lagos, you know, one tribe and the other, and those things do not seem to fall in line with what the national anthem says, one nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. How should people be seeing themselves when the only thing we can see are the lines that divide us, when yet we are on the same queue trying to vote for one person?
Absolutely. The politicians will always play their game as politicians to look for the divide that will bring them the competitive advantage or the advantage at the polls. That is sad, where we have to use division in religion, language, you know, to win at the polls. However, if you notice the way I address my language, I'm speaking to leaders, not just the politicians. I'm speaking to leaders that once we stand in a community, we should realize that we are leaders and we stand for all. It is beneficial for us to stand together as one, even as Nigerians. We are, like we say, 200 million plus people. The economics of that is even better than when we have a division of 50, 30, 20 million people as separate nation states. It's important for us to realize that. I think the narrative simply needs to be driven. We need to speak more about unity and its positive advantages as against where we're talking about division. We're talking about the various things that could bring about division of the country.
And that make us different.
That's correct.
But this is perhaps to, first of all, address the individual, because just as you said, a USOSA is one person and there is a community of people.
Correct.
So at what point, because just as Chamberlain said the other time, there are USOSAs that have been in government and some of them don't seem to be able to, you know, exalt some of these virtues that you're talking about. So that individual, how do we reconstruct that individual going forward?
Good. Now, there are multiple layers or multiple stakeholders that need to be involved in this reconstructive process or reconstruction process. Now, one, of course, is the association, which I lead as a coalition of 104 federal unity colleges. That is one. But on a different level, we should speak to the government. Now, I say speak to the government by also speaking to ourselves as being part of the government. Because even within the government, you have graduates from the unity schools who are integral part and leading in various sectors in the government. Now, we have an organization or parastatal within the government like the National Orientation Agency. I hear little of what the National Orientation Agency is doing, speaking to its own ethos for its own formation. What is it doing to drive the subject matter of Nigeria and its unity? It needs to be activated. We talk about the Federal Ministry of Information. Yes, it's an information ministry, but I dare say I hear little about the information about one Nigeria that is coming out of the Federal Ministry of Education. All we hear is how it's driving the agenda of the government in power. Now, there are different levels different stakeholders that need to play in this. Will we play our part as a coalition of associations? It's important that we play our part. It's important that I play my part to activate my USOSAs to make sure that they are the leaders that they are groomed to be. However, those in government need to drive the agenda for who we be as a nation. Nigeria is better one. We can and only achieve what we are or we're supposed to be as Nigeria when we are focused with a purposeful leadership at the aims of affairs.
Okay. What challenges do you face in trying to address this? Because, I mean, people talk about the different challenges that, you know, they face in different spheres, trying to push this narrative of unity and one Nigeria. What are your challenges, and how do you recommend we overcome them?
Well, the challenges really have to do with, it's an engagement issue, engagement at different levels. Engagement at different levels of the association, engagement and encouraging even the leaders I'm talking about now to get involved at the grassroots. You see, things cannot change in Nigeria if we as leaders do not get involved at the grassroots level. There's one thing saying, for example, as a leader, I want to change Nigeria, but I just look to the federal level or the national level to get involved. But I forget that. Decisions are made right from the grassroots at the unit level, at the world level, politically now.
So more like wherever you are, you have to just show that leadership.
Wherever you are, you need to show who you be. You need to get involved and create positive change.
But the person has gone through a process, just as you said.
Correct.
Being constructed, trained, groomed, tooled, you used the other time,
yes,
to be a leader. But then the person leaves that learning environment and goes into the larger environment. I think that's where, I don't know if they are positioned enough to be able to face those vicissitudes of the real life when they leave the learning environment.
Yes, I mean, you can only show who you be when you're in the environment for what you've been groomed for. So it basically means you just need to realize who you are, and wherever you are, be it at work, be it in the community, even be it in your own family, create that positive change. Realize who you be as a Nigerian. It's extremely important. We need to start bringing out those positives of us. We are Nigerians. More importantly, you know, we are arguably one of the best people in the world as a collective, Nigerians. We simply need to stop and play down on the negative narrative, but not emphasize the positive narrative. That's...
You know, when they say actions speak louder than words, how do you tell people who feel hard done by the country that they need to think unity?
Good. No matter where you stand in life in terms of your economic status, you need to always look positively as to how to better your day. Now, what that means is even when things are going crazy for you, you need to look up to any leaders that you know will change your situation. Now, if you are looking for leaders to change your situation, you shouldn't be looking for just the money that you're going to just eat for the day, but how do I, now if I'm a fisherman, how do I learn to fish properly? Where do I go out? Which rivers do I go out to fish? And make sure the rivers are not spots for me to fish, as against somebody just giving me money for the day. We simply just need to look aright and be focused on what we want to do to change ourselves. We simply need to be selfish with that, from that perspective, not just to feed ourselves for the day, but to look towards what we need to do to feed ourselves for the month, for the year, for the years, and take care of our families. It's very important. What that also means, coming back to the politics, in which, I mean, this is the time for politics. Okay. If we're going to vote.
We'll come to that.
Okay.
And then speak to, can you make an omelette without breaking an egg? We'll talk about that when we come back. Stay with us. All right, you were going to talk about politics.
Yes.
What must we do in that area?
Well, as we go out on Saturday, people have to vote their conscience and where they think they need to go as a people to better their lives. It basically means you need to look at the contenders and not just vote along party lines, but vote along the ideals of those candidates to see that you can have better education wherever you are in the country. You are voting in a leader that stands for what a better society should stand for, which is now security and unity within the community. That is very important. So what I'm pushing forward is basically, as we go out this Saturday, politics-wise, we need to make sure we vote not just our conscience, but the fact that voting purposeful leaders who
you don't think that
the country.
What the people's immediate need may get into the way of logical thinking?
Well, that will always get into the way of logical thinking. It will always. But we have to also realize the fact that whilst we are thinking about our immediate daily bread, we need to also think about our sustainable daily and monthly bread moving forward. And it's important that that be the case. You need to vote someone that is going to stand for security in the environment where you live and you work. It's very important.
All right, Mr. Lawrence Wilbert is the President General, Unity Schools Old Students Association. Thank you for coming on this morning. That's the show as well. Well, thank you all for watching. Well, yes, we'll be back tomorrow, but in a different manner. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Ayo Makinde saying have a good day.
Well, thank you. I'm Maope Ogun Yusuf.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this program are those of the maker and do not reflect the views, opinions, and endorsement of Channels Television.